Right, next episode, how to tune a carburetor and time it up. I tell you what, this video could be applicable to any classic car with a carburetor and a distributor, whether it be with points or a later one with an electronic amplifier. There's not much to them, but it can be a bit faffy. It will take a couple of goes. I've got a feeling that what I do today, I might drive it a bit and then think, this doesn't feel right. Let's go back and tweak it again. And that's the world of classic cars. You're constantly fettling them. They are never correct. They're never perfect, but you can get them near perfect and happy. You know a happy engine when you hear one, and you know it's happy the way it pulls down the road. So it could be that I might be able to redo this, but this is the procedure that you do to tune this car up. There are a few things that I noticed at the end of last episode after that initial startup. I have naturally disturbed quite a few things on this car, and I've got a feeling that a few of those things may have just revealed themselves. Now, we've changed the valve stem seals. The blue smoke has virtually disappeared. What I made sure is for absolute definite that that breather hose that goes from the back of the block all the way to the top of the rocker cover, I made sure that that was free. I've also double checked now to make sure that there is no blockages, because we know that CVHs are heavy on the breathing, particularly if they're warm. That can increase the breathing, and naturally at 50,000 miles, I don't necessarily think it's had a hard life, but at the same time, it might have done because it's a low mileage car. It's not necessarily a factor with these cars. It depends how it's been serviced, and I know for a fact that it was serviced on the dot by Rates Ford, so the oil changes would have been extremely frequent, which is very good for a CVH. So the bottom end, I expect to find coke. I may take the sump off. I probably will take the sump off in the future, but for now I've stuck that oil in, and unless I see a serious issue where I feel, yeah, we need to get this off immediately, I will treat the oil that I've just put in as running in. It might get dirty quite quickly. I've disturbed quite a few things. I've put the additive in there to try and help things. So we'll monitor it. But it might be that I'm going to be taking that sump off and just finding out how cokey it is at the bottom. Because if anybody remembers when I took the sump off Project Beatrix, my God. I mean, to be fair, I don't think that car been serviced regularly, judging from a few things. This car has, which means it's probably cleaner than most CVHs its age. Most of them have probably been well looked after. Otherwise, how would a CVH survive if it wasn't looked after? It's like any engine. You just got to change the oil. That's it. Check the breathers. So there was a few little bits of coke, as you could see, that were coming out around the exhaust manifold. I have bookmarked an exhaust manifold gasket. That may be done at some point. The truth is, I'll probably do that if I drop the sump, because I'll probably have to drop the manifold pipe a little bit to take the sump completely off, because it goes underneath the sump. So I'll probably do a couple of jobs, including some new studs and bolts. I'm not taking any chances, particularly with an engine this age. It's as simple as that. So I was a bit annoyed about the dirt that was left. There was a bit of a leak around the oil filter and a leak around the dipstick tube, which made me think, breathers. That's a possibility. But if there was a bad problem with that breather pipe or the breathing system, I'd be getting oil coming from a lot more areas. There'd be oil coming from the front of the sump, the side of the sump where the crankshaft pulley is. There'd be rocker cover leaks. I'd have seen a lot more problems than just a little few areas here and there. So it's highlighted a few areas that I need to perhaps look at. And as I said, it's fine fettling. You're going to discover problems as we start the car. But anyway, today, tuning. And once again, the weather has held out. Now this video takes place a few hours after the last video, so it's been cooled, so we can monitor it. The exhaust manifold has kind of burned some of the paint off, so it's gone a little bit brown. I expected that because that's a very rusty down pipe. It was just to make it look a bit better. It doesn't really matter. It's purely cosmetic. As I say, we were getting some, I would say, coke coming out of there, just a little bit. around the edges. I was just a bit concerned. There was a little bit on the inlet manifold, so I was a bit concerned that the breathing system isn't entirely happy. We will look at that, but this pipe is definitely there's definitely free, there's no blockages in that pipe whatsoever. It's all free, and obviously this does exactly the same. Well, this takes it from the crankcase into the rocker cover area, and that takes it and burns it through the engine. It's as simple as that. Some of it goes through the air filter, some of it goes back in the inlet. It's how it works, but the CVH is very marginal, and we've only, I think the coolant has dropped a fraction, but I'm pleased because that means all the air has been purged out the system. I will do a check on the automatic gearbox. I forgot to do that last time, but we've let the engine cool. It's still, no, it's not even tepid. That's absolutely fantastic. I mean, as I say, there was a small weep coming from this side as well. As I say, I think that gasket, yeah, maybe I should have done that before, but the truth is, you don't really want to be replacing things unless absolutely necessary, and I think it's one of them jobs I kind of passed off as, well, it wasn't happening before. And that's the truth. This engine, I've had this engine running before I messed about with it, and have done a lot of cleaning. And what cleaning does is it tends to reveal oil leaks when they happen immediately. And the truth is, I don't believe that any of this was happening before from what I could visually see when the car was running, particularly in the first episode, the reveal of this car. That's when I did a lot of looking at this engine, and I've done something, and something different's happened, but I'm just going to ignore that. Maybe it will get better, I'm not sure. There's a few things I've disturbed, valve stem seals, so I've got to be aware during this process. But if I see things I don't like, then I'm going to have to act on that straight away and get that sump off, and just find out for definite that we haven't got anything causing excess pressure in the crankcase. The truth is, some people might point out I might have a slightly more worn engine than 50,000 miles would usually depict. It's possible, but it doesn't really go with the fact that this engine was serviced on the dot with regular oil changes. I've had so many comments from people when I took that rocker cover off. That's clean for a CVH. You have little issues. And listen how quiet it was, guys. After all that work I've done, how quiet is the top end of this engine? A bit more quieter than it was when I first started it up on that reveal. So there's improvements, and there will be victories and losses. It's all part of the journey of older cars. If you're not willing to take the rough with the smooth, don't buy cars this age. That's my advice. Anyway, first thing today, we are going to look at the timing. Okay, now I'm going to pass you over to Andrew, who's going to give you, Andrew in the flat, there's two Andrews in this episode, that we've done the static timing. Okay, we've managed to get the timing exactly right in order to start the car, and it starts perfectly fine. If the car didn't start, it's possible you put it 180 degrees out. So instead of the rotor arm pointing to number 1 when the engine is at top dead center, it will be pointing to number 4 down there, and it'll be 180 degrees out. It'll basically be firing on its exhaust stroke, not the compression stroke. So yeah, you need to actually take the Dizzy out, spin the shaft around, put it back in, and then that's your static timing. And obviously we've lined the marks up, but again, do not rely on them marks, because we're going to confirm that those marks still get 8 degrees before top dead center. That's important. But anyway, a bit of a theory lesson from Andrew inside.
Okay, just a little bit of a theory lesson, guys, just to show you exactly what I'm talking about. So here we have a little diagram. Think of it as a clock, but we haven't got the circle around the outside. We have top dead center, okay, where the piston reaches the top of its compression stroke to compress the air fuel. So basically squash. That's the squash moment. We have over here before top dead center as a measurement when the spark plugs ignite the fuel mixture, okay, and we go off number 1 spark plug. That's how we set the ignition timing, okay, hence why we do it on number 1. But that is the measurement of when the spark plug ignites the mixture. Now the time and the length of the time it takes for that air fuel mixture to have been ignited Then the piston reaches the top momentarily after that. That is a very short space of time, I can tell you, to when we get the full burn of air fuel. That is roughly 20 degrees after top dead center. Most engines go off that degree. Most car engineers, when they're designing engines, they go off that. The full burn of fuel must happen by 20 degrees after top dead center, and then they work back from there, okay? And they work out, depending on a number of factors, the size of the engine, the performance rating, the type of fuels that engine is designed to use, what that is supposed to be. Now, in a car with an ECU will control when this happens. It will control the ignition timing completely, which is why we don't deal with setting the ignition timing, okay? It is done for you, and the ignition will basically vary this quite a bit depending on the current state of fuel. For instance, if you went and bought V-Power 99 V-Power, God, my handwriting's crap. 99 V-Power, that will burn far slower. So the ignition, the ECU, will time the time of spark ignition to be much earlier, maybe 11, 12, 10 degrees, something like that. It will be far earlier. So that is what we call advancing the ignition. When we come down here, we advance the ignition. Okay? If we are putting a cheaper 95 octane supermarket, God, I'm absolutely rubbish at writing, 95 supermarket fuel, cheap unleaded, I should say, not super unleaded like this, unleaded. That means that the fuel is more volatile. It will burn quicker. Therefore, we need to retard the ignition. Retard the ignition simply means we need to bring back the spark just before or near to top dead center. Because if we didn't do that, we get pinking. We would get some pre-detonation and knocking. That's what pinking is. It's a horrible sound. You do not want it happening to your car, and that is what happens. That's why in a modern car we have what is called a knock sensor, which is a microphone to listen if there is any pinking happening at this point, because this is where pinking happens if the timing is not quite correct under load. The sensor will hear, I say here, it's an electronic microphone, and it will tell the ECU you need to sort the ignition out. So i.e. the ignition is too advanced, we need to retard it to make sure that the spark is happening later. It's as simple as that. That is what an ECU does. But in my car, we don't have any of this crap. We're not going to have any of this crap as well, to be honest. We have to do it ourselves because the whole thing is controlled via a Dizzy. Okay, the bob weights and the vacuum advance in the Dizzy control all the advancement and retard. That's what that does. But the Dizzy only works because we have to set the initial before top dead center timing mark, which is what I'm going to do or confirm today. We need to set that initial point, and the point in the manual for Mark III Fiesta with this engine and this system is 8 degrees. It is that, perfectly in the middle. 8 degrees, which will basically be tuned to pretty much 95 to 97 octane fuel, it says, and Mark III Fiestas were tuned for unleaded fuel. Now, leaded petrol, I'll tell you something, there's something about classic cars you need to know. When I had my P6, that car, like a lot of pre-1980s cars, well, pre-1995 cars were designed to run on leaded fuel, and leaded fuel burns extremely quickly. It is not a slow burner, so you will often have to do that. You will have to time the ignition at 4 degrees before top dead center. 8 degrees, you're joking. If I put it at 8 degrees, even with V-Power Super Unleaded, it will pink. My car will be pinking all over the place before it reaches top dead center. Oh my goodness me, it would be bad. You have to do that with classic cars. It's a very short space of time. But with unleaded fuels, they burn slower, less volatile. They will last that long. They can last that long. But with this car, we need to reach about 8 degrees. And that is what I'm going out now to confirm that we have 8 degrees. Now, the stamps that were marked on the Dizzy were to require that timing mark in the factory, but that is only a static timing. We need to dynamically time the car with a strobe gun. It's called dynamic timing, and it is to confirm that those marks on the Dizzy get 8 degrees. And that is what is going to get us the perfect timing. Let's do it.
Okay, that's a decent enough lecture, don't you think? So hopefully you understand a bit more about why it's so important to get the timing, the initial timing point right on a car without an ECU. Classic car. That's what makes this a classic car. I don't consider a Mark III Fiesta on an F-Reg to be a modern classic. It's just too classic. We're dealing with old school stuff that were around from the time of when automotive cars became a thing, the automobile, you know. So I don't consider this to be a modern classic. It's too classic. So I'm now going to show you how we use one of these. Oh my god, I have not used this since my P6 days. Oh boy, this is going to be fun, and it still works. Sometimes these cheap ones can get a bit funny. This is an AccuSpark one, and it's an S8000. It's not one of these fancy ones with a digital display, okay, for those of you who do know what that is, and that will show you the advancement. There's a lot of ways you can check the advancement. The truth is, I'll show you that in a bit. But the first thing you do before you tune a carb is you time it up. Now, because we obviously need to just ascertain that the timing is correct on this car, because if we did the carb first, if we tune the carb and then did the timing, what you'll find is once you've timed it or adjusted the timing, you have to go back to the carb again. But if you do it this way round, you shouldn't have to go back to the timing. Once the timing is set, that's it. The timing is the focal point of everything. It sets everything. The carb runs off that timing, and that's why the carb may not be entirely happy, because the timing may be slightly out from what it should be. Maybe that's why this car was a bit of a pain to tune in the past, and that's why people have just made it rich. And the spark plugs definitely show that after the run. There was a little bit of black coke that I believe that came off one of the plugs when I took it out. And it definitely showed there was a rich mixture going on. So I want to cure that, but it will be cured at the end of this, hopefully. Fingers crossed. It'll be a lot better than what it was. Now, first note is the little tip on the crankshaft pulley, that little pointer, that little notch that lines up with the mark on the timing belt cover to tell you where it is, top dead center. You need to make a paint mark, okay, a white paint mark, just a tiny one. It's to make sure that when this strobe gun is going off and it's flashing, you can clearly see that. Now on camera that's going to be very difficult to show, but what you have to do is point the gun at the crankshaft pulley, and it will show you that mark. That mark will be like that. If you've got an old car and if the timing mark is like doing that all the time, that does indicate where in the advanced mechanism it shouldn't be doing that. Now there's a couple of things we need to do, so let's get started. Now this is going to be very difficult to see, but basically we have got the timing marks down here where my finger is. Now you're not going to be able to see them on camera. I can barely see it as it is, so I think I'm going to have to put white paint on the 8 degree mark, because that's what we want. We want some white paint on the notch on the crankshaft pulley and white paint on the 8 degree mark. That way both of those lines should line up perfectly, hopefully, when I start the car. If they don't, that means we're going to have to take these two slacken these 2 bolts, and we're going to have to turn the distributor either anti-clockwise or clockwise. I can't figure out which way does what. It's different for every car, but you're going to have to turn it and see how that affects the lines. But you want to turn the distributor to the point where those lines, they mark up. That gun should show those 2 white marks line up perfectly, and then you tighten those bolts and finish. It's as simple as that. Now we are going to have to get the car to working temperature first, so I'm going to have to start it up and run it a little bit. Now for this purpose, we are going to have to put the air filter box loosely back on. We're just going to fit it on, no bolts, just fit the breather pipe back on for this purpose alone. Okay, now this gun is an inductive. It's not the old-fashioned ones, it's an inductive. Okay, it takes the HT lead current into this lead, and that's what gives you the strobe effect. So basically when that light is flashing, it's when number 1 is firing, and we go off number 1 and make sure we've got the arrow of current, so it's going to the plug. Make sure that arrow is going to the plug, and make sure that that is in there. There we go, done. That's as simple as what it gets. Okay, now I've made my mark. I'm going to try and start the car. Well, we have to let it warm up for a bit. Just make sure that nothing is in the way here. We don't have to do anything in terms of bridging the fan or anything. That's for the carburetor, but this runs off the battery. Okay, so we're going to hook the air filter back on, very loosely indeed. Lovely. Right, it's just slapped into place. Okay, lovely. We've got the air duct. Yeah, that might help if I actually put that back on, because it is quite an important piece, this, to get it warmed up. So just put that back in there. Okay, now we don't want that touching anything. I might have to wrap that round some way. Anyway, I'll start the car and let it warm up for a few minutes. Well, let's see how well it starts up now. Just pull the choke out. And very good. Okay, it's quite fast. Just pull the choke. There's a bit more choke. Right, I'll come back when we're fully warmed up and we're good to go. Right, I've just stopped the engine, just plugged that in, and I just had a bit of a look around while the engine was getting warm again, and most of the smell is gone. There is still a bit of burning coming from down here. See, I've got a feeling there's still a bit of blowback. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to check one of the plugs before I begin. I'm very curious actually to see what the plugs actually look like. I've got this because I'm going to need this anyway, but I just want to know what number 1 looks like. I didn't screw this in very tightly, I will tell you that. I really didn't. Oh dear me. Now pull this out. Okay, so we got a bit of, that doesn't look bad at all. We've got a bit of oil on the seat, but actually, well, that looks rather okay. It looks better than it did before. Ah, so it might have burnt off a lot of the excess. That's not bad at all. Okay, I do think we might need to change this gasket, because it's just, it's making a mess of all my paint, man. But no, I'm very happy with the way that got to temperature back then. But the choke is a bit intermittent because it's just not tuned up properly. And if you're having issues where you're not quite sure what's kind of going on, it's because of that. Excuse me. Right, I'm still suffering from a complete cough. Now, what you need to do the timing is, it's really important this. There is no point you sticking that gun down there if you've got this still attached, and it's a vacuum pipe that goes to the advance module. What that will be doing, that will be advancing the ignition. We need to block it off. So take the pipe out Okay, don't worry about that pipe whatsoever. It doesn't do anything. What we're going to do now, I'd say that is it's a one way, so I wouldn't worry about that because air's not going to go down and ruin the mixture, trust me. But we got to block up this hole on the other vacuum pipe. Now there's a couple of ways of doing this. You might have a bung somewhere. I don't really have anything particular, and I tell you what I did on the P6. You might have spotted it. Yeah, gaffer tape. I'm going to see if the gaffer tape will hold itself. I don't want to stuff anything in there that could get stuck in there, and then I'm having to get the Dizzy off to get it all off again. So you've got to find a way of blocking that hole up, because if that vacuum advance is working, you're not going to get an accurate reading on that side. That is a very, very big rookie's error going on there. So make sure that is good. Now the other thing is, I've just been fine fettling, trying to find the idle screw under here, and I have found it, and I've just took the idle back to a reasonable 950, I would say. When it got to temperature, the choke was off. I gave it a blast of throttle, 2000 RPM. The book says 3000. I'm gonna just do it gentle. 2000 RPM for about 15 to 20 seconds, and it just burps all the excess fuel out the system, anything that's left over. And you're going to find that when we're tuning the carb. Let the engine settle for 20 seconds. It will settle to something where it feels right. Look at the reading, and roughly on the gauge it was showing just under 1000. I'm just going to start the car up again. Come on. Now what will happen actually if when I start that is that the advance is not going to work. I'm going to put the gaffer tape over that hole, and then we can begin. But you have to make note of the reference point. Now I can't see down there very well, but the big pointer is, I think, let me just check that before I start doing things. Right, I'm attempting to show you, but the truth is you're not going to be able to see. Yes, you can see. Right, okay, hold the torch there. Now you see that big massive pointer there that sticks out above the rest? Yeah, that is top dead center. Okay, we've got 4 others on the left hand side. If you can just see, turn it over, that's better. We've got 4 more. They are in increments of 4 degrees. So the first one to the left is 4 degrees before top dead center. Then the second one is 8 degrees. That's the one we're going for. We're going for the second one. The third one is 12. The fourth one is 16. We need to go for that second pointer. Okay, that second one to the left of the big pointer. Now ideally just put some paint down there, but I'm just going to do it by vision because I can see. But you may want to do so if you're doing this, but obviously I don't think anybody else has done this before, so that's what we're doing. And the strobe gun will keep flashing. Now I'm going to try and leave the torch in a reasonable position down there, because I need to see what's going on. I don't know if I can move those hoses out the way, but we're now going to start the car again. I'm just going to give it some gas, and then we get the gun. Here we go. This is where I need to go to Specsavers, or find out I need to go to Specsavers again because my eyesight's changed. Okay, let the temperature go up. That's a good start, that is. Choke is completely off. Okay. Now I've just plugged the advance on the Dizzy. There will be no vacuum advance, but it won't affect the running. You won't notice. They go down and settle. Give it a second. Still running a little bit high. That was running at 1000. Now, because I've plugged the vacuum advance, we're running a little bit faster than normal. That was running at about 950, now it's running a bit more faster. That's the only effect of doing this. But we should now be able to time this thing completely. Where is the timing? Well, it would help if I actually had it bloody connected for a start. Right. You see that? That's the screw. Now you've got to see the white marks on the crankshaft pulley that you've just made with paint and line it up. Let's see. Well, you won't see anything, but I will. Right, okay guys. I've seen enough. Just pop that in a safe place, probably by the radiator, excuse me. Right, the timing is too advanced. That timing is at between 8 and 10. I'd say about 10 degrees that's timed at. That is way too advanced. We need to now slacken off. This is the point. It should be the correct timing, but it isn't. It isn't the correct timing, okay? That is way too advanced. So now we need to slacken off the 2 bolts on the Dizzy and turn the Dizzy to get those marks lined up properly. I'm just going to turn the engine off for a split second while we do this. This is important, guys. This is why you cannot rely on factory settings anymore. This engine has aged, it's worn, and that is the incorrect timing. It's running advanced. Now, I did say that I was going to actually advance the ignition, but that is operating at about 10 degrees before top dead center. It's racing. I can actually hear that the engine is racing. The mixture may not be correct. The choke is off. The idle is about 1,000 RPM. It seems to have settled around there, around with the advance plugged. Now, I did confirm that my gaffer tape solution, I had put gaffer tape. What I did is I put my finger on the end of that advance tube and with my left hand, I read the marks just to confirm that the gaffer tape was doing its job, and it has. There is no advancement of the ignition. So, this is where we have to adjust things. So, slacken these 2 bolts. Okay. Oh, come on. There we go. Just slacken. This is so we can turn the Dizzy completely. Okay. Oh, come on. There we go. I am going to tighten these fully when we've done the actual resetting. Now, the truth is, you've got to be very careful about distributor clamps. Now, the old-fashioned Lucas ones, this is a newer Lucas one, but the old ones had a clamp around here. And what I found out in my P6 is that the clamp used to loosen and the Dizzy used to turn, and the timing would go out after about a couple of months of driving. It was really bad for that, so you've got to make sure that that's tightened up. But we're now in this position where we can turn the Dizzy. It is a simple case of twisting and taking these marks completely out of alignment. See, they've already moved. But anyway, I'm going to start the car again, let it idle, okay? Just let it settle. Okay. Okay, I'll tell you something. Look at that exhaust. Get it in the black. No, that's improved. That's a lot better. The valve stem seals must have done the job. I'm really pleased about that. Right, okay, what we're going to do is, well, I'm going to have to do this off camera. I'm going to stick you on the tripod. I have to turn this Dizzy with one hand and look at the gun with my left hand, okay? That's what you do. Right, I've just tightened that bolt there. Can you see how much we moved? I've had to move the Dizzy fractionally back from where it was. Don't know, you're not going to be able to see, but it's a bit frustrating for you guys because it's really easy with this thing. It's really, really easy. Now, I managed to tune that to 8 degrees before top dead center. There's still a little bit of, there's something burning off around here. I can't work out what, whether it's excess oil or whatever. It is getting better. But anyway, what I'm going to do, the temperature has gone up a little bit. I'm going to bring that down a little bit. Yeah, temperature's coming down very, very slowly. Let it settle. Because we've changed the ignition timing, the pitch of the engine will change. When you advance the ignition, it will race. When you retard, it will become slower. Now, I'm gonna have to switch the engine off for a second because that would affect the timing. Perfect, right, switch off. Okay, that engine has got to cool now. Now, I would probably put the cooling fan on. Whew. You can hear that water. Now, what I would probably recommend is putting the cooling fan on to prevent the temperature just going up a little bit too much. But we can now tighten the other clamp and we can consider this engine timed up. Now, what I've done is I've taken the coolant sensor out and I've made a wire to bridge it. You've got to do that for the carb test, although I should have done that for the timing. But it won't affect the timing at all. Turn the ignition on. There you go. The fan will run continuously now, just to cool things down. Let's leave it to cool down. Whew. So, I'll just tighten it up. Now, I need to make a mental note now. So, that, see where that is? Yeah, so the mark has just moved to the left-hand side of where the original mark was. That's how much wear an engine of this age may have, or it could be distributor wear. Simple as. You know what? If you're really good with multitasking, don't worry about duct tape or bungs. Just put your finger on it with your right hand. No, sorry, not that finger. That one. And then the left hand does that, okay? You do need good eyesight. I'm sorry I can't show it to you, but it is really one of them things only you can see. And this light makes it so bloody easy, it's untrue. So I'm really happy now that the timing was about 10 degrees. Now it's 8. So I've retarded the ignition. That's what I've done. But I think on an engine of this age, I don't want it to be racing. Although I've got to say, 10 degrees is probably good with V-Power and super unleaded. 8 degrees is what it says on the factory. I've just given the engine a bit of a relaxed lease of life. Now, I'm just going to let this engine cool down quite a bit before I proceed with the carb tuning. But make sure these bolts are clamped tight now. We can take all this off. Right, the vacuum hose is back on. Brilliant. Now we can proceed to the next stage. I'm just going to turn off the ignition to avoid burning the fan out. The car will naturally sort itself out. Yeah, there's a bit of burning smoke around the exhaust manifold, and I've got a feeling that there is some I don't know what it is. Excess coking? That's what that black stuff is. It's coke. combination of oil and not so sure about that. I've checked round the back of the engine, and actually, where's my torch gone? I can't see anything. I mean, this engine has been running now for a good 10 minutes. I can't see anything down the back. Water's leaking really badly at the end of the oil dipstick there, just at the end. No, I can't see anything. Nope. Maybe it was excess, I don't know. That was that's interesting. Okay, monitor it, but spark plug looks good. I've taken it out again just now to check it, and I think the mixture isn't too far off what it needs to be. Now, next stage, we are going to go on to carb tuning. I'm sorry if this is a long episode, but this is exactly the way to do it, and this is my channel down to a T. I want to check the temperature. We want the car at working temperature to sort the carb out. That's the main thing. Now, oh, my list has disappeared. Oh, it's over here. That's why. Now, we've done the timing. We are happy that we have a base. We've not just got a base, we've dynamically timed the car. Next one, idle speed, 850 RPM. We do it in this order. You do the idle speed, you do the fuel mixture, then you go back to the idle speed again. Because if you do the fuel mixture, that will affect the idle speed. You've got to go back and do that again. So how do we check the idle speed? Do we use the tachometer in the car? No, that is not accurate. You don't use a tachometer. I've got one on my own, and it's this lovely piece of equipment here. Excuse the fan running. It's this. You seen one of these before? Some of you may be familiar. It's quite a cheap kit, but it is an electronic digital tachometer with a laser. It's just a pure laser, and what you do is you cut a bit of this tape and you stick a bit of that tape to that fan belt there, if it will accept it. Stick a bit of the tape, aim the laser at the fan belt, and it will tell you how fast the engine is spinning. And that will allow me to twist this, basically the idle speed screw, which is somewhere down here. But again, this has got to be loose, but I can actually get at the screw because it's like a knurled screw. It's easy. I've shown you before that one. The idle speed, if you want the idle to increase, you turn it in clockwise. If you want the idle speed to decrease, you turn it anti-clockwise to turn it back out. It's as simple as that. Let's do that. That's how much length of tape you really do need to use, and I just stick it down there. I hope to God that does not fly off. Sometimes they have a habit of falling off. Yeah, but that's the length you kind of need. That's going to fall off, that is. Dearie me, that's not straight enough. We'll see how it goes. If it goes to the pulleys, okay. It may come off, it may not. We'll see how it goes. Lovely. And all you're doing is you're aiming. It's just a battery one, and you just aim it there, and you see that laser. There you go, and it's doing exactly 0. Okay, that's what you want to see. Okay, 0 RPM, and that will get us roughly where we need it to go. Now, 850, give or take 50, by the book for 1.4 CVH Auto, okay? But it's by the book. It's what this engine feels comfortable at. If I put it at 850 for a start and it feels a bit not quite happy, it could be the fuel mixture, which in that case, I'll go to the fuel mixture next, and then we go back to the idle. This is just to get it roughly. The first time we do the idle, it's just rough. It's the fuel mixture that will affect how we do this. But anyway, the engine is at working temperature. Let's go. It is important when you do this procedure that the fan is operating all the time, so that's why I've bridged it and have that running, because it might make things a bit easy on the engine. Lovely. Okay, we'll wait for that needle to go up a little bit. Got that set to hot. Give the cooling system a bit of a fair chance. We've got a decent amount of fuel in the car. I've only put 5 litres in there. Okay, now that's what the tachometer says, but we're going to give it a blip. Hopefully that sticky tape wouldn't have fallen off by now. We'll find out. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thunderbirds are go. Yeah, I thought I was going to do that. I thought that'd be fun. Okay, that's where it's relaxed. We have to give it about 20 seconds, but by the time I've got round there with this and worked it out, yeah. Oh yes, the sticker has stayed on. Right, aim the laser and read. What did it say? Okay, right, so I have adjusted that screw just now. My piece of reflective tape keeps coming off. That's the only problem with this. I don't think this is entirely accurate, but it gives me an idea. I think it's just as probably to confirm that the speedo actually does work. And sorry about that, excuse me. I can't have that covering it up. The car cover's dropped. Unfortunately, we keep having rain, so I'm having to shuffle things, but it's all good. Lovely. I don't want it catching fire. But in general, that is the idle speed. It seems it's about 800 RPM. It says 850 on here. What I'm going to do is just give it a bit of a kick. The temperature's gone down a bit because I had to turn the car off because it started blooming raining, which has interrupted my whole process. Seems quite happy with that. What I'm going to do, for argument's sake, I am going to twist the knob in. I'm going to increase the idle speed a fraction. Come on. There we go. Just a little bit stiff. Right. So now, that is merely a guide, but actually I think this rev counter is quite accurate in the way that it shows its information. Good. Right, stop that. Okay, stop that. There's the only flaw with one of these. It's quite cheap the way it works, but the tape always comes off no matter how much cleaning you do. So I've got to get another one back on there, but that was just enough to kind of give me an idea. Now the next thing, which is quite important, hence why I've got my H3 to go right in the back of the carburetor. I'm going to have to probably take this off to show you. Where's the mixture screw? It's right where my finger is there. So I'm just going to stick this in. Come on. There we go. Yeah, okay. Now that is to adjust the mixture. I can actually just twiddle that a little bit. And I'm going to leave that hanging there for a second, because there's something quite special and quite expensive these days. I bought my kit years ago. But to check the mixture, it says in the book you need an exhaust gas analyzer, a CO2 exhaust analyzer. Gunson used to make them back in the day, but the problem is, how accurate would it be? I mean, you could get an exhaust. I mean, you could go to the shop and get an exhaust. You know, get your garage to do an exhaust analyze job. That's probably how garages will do it. They'll stick the CO2 reader on, which is 1.5% CO2. That's what it should be. But we're not going to do it that way. We're doing it the old-fashioned way, the home DIY job way. And it means I've got to take this plug out, because this particular thing, which I cannot find because it's disappeared. Oh, it's here. There we go. Does anybody know what this is? Oh yes, the old Gunson colour tube. For those people who have never seen one of these before, it is a special spark plug, but you can see through it. So you can see whether you have a good, nice spark, i.e. a blue a blue spark, I should say. I'm getting caught up by my coughing. You will have a blue spark, which is the perfect air fuel mixture. If it goes a bit whitish or yellowish, I should say, it means that the spark is a bit weak, of the mixture is a bit weak. If the If the mixture is correct, it will be blue. If it's a bit on the rich side, red. I always go by the rule of thumb, blue with a hint of red. That's how I find that old classic cars tend to work. But basically you put the HT lead on that end and you will be able to see through that clear piece what the hell is going on the other side. And that is how I'm going to adjust the mixture. Same procedure as before, bridge the fan and keep adjusting it at the back. Again, clockwise to turn it in actually weakens the mixture, believe it or not. Turn it anti-clockwise to wind the needle valve out, richens the mixture. So it's a bit of the opposite to the idle speed. But judging by these plugs, I haven't got it far off, to be honest. It's a really good sign. That's actually really good. Bit dirty on the centre, but the good thing is there's no carbon fouling and there's no massive signs of oil residue on that. In fact, there isn't any. That's a really good sign, that is. So I'm going to put that on there. We are going to insert this special spark plug. Now, what I'm going to have to do is just twist this on. Now, it just has to go in hand tight. Okay? Hand tight. You don't have to do it any more than that. That's it. Lovely. Now, we need to stick our HT lead right at the end. Lovely. That's nice and on. Now we can see what's going on in there. Shall we? Of course. Remember, to start off with, we just give it a bit of throttle to kick it into gear as such. RPM, 10 seconds please. Okay. Let it settle. Seems to have settled at 900. Okay, that's fine. The mixture setting, I might have accidentally knocked it. But anyway, what is that spark plug saying? Oh, we got some blue, we got some red. Okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to twist it in. Come on. I think we need a bit more mixture. So we wind it out to enrichen the mixture. That's a really good spark. That's a really good burn, I should say. That's really good. I'm going to leave it like that. Take it out. That is fine. That doesn't need fine fettling whatsoever. That mixture is absolutely slap bang on. Blue with a hint of red. Okay, well, I've done a bit of fine fettling at the backside. I've had to just weaken it a little bit. I would say that's a blue flame with a hint of red. Yeah, I'm happy. The engine has just started vibrating a bit more. That's what will happen when you weaken the mixture. But what's happened at the other side is this. The idle speed has come down. Right, let's just give it a kick. 2000 RPM. Just hold it for 5 seconds. Quick burst. Okay, I'm really happy with that. In fact, that's sitting at a really... I tell you what, I can feel it. The vibrations. I can feel a happy car here. You get a sense of this. Now, obviously, it's fine. This is obviously where you... That's actually, there's not a hint of blue smoke in that. Absolutely amazing. Check again. Yeah, I'm going to leave it there. That's the mixture done. But now, we've got to go back to the idle speed. This is where you do the idle speed again. Now, my tachometer's fallen off, but the truth is, actually, I don't think I need that, because I've actually confirmed that the gauge in the car is actually pretty close to what that is. That's what that's useful for, confirming whether your rev counter is actually any good. So, what we're going to do is just try and wind this screw back a bit. Okay. It's only a micro adjustment to the idle speed. That's the only tiny amount of change we've had to make. But this engine feels happy. Now, that doesn't feel very happy. That is a bit on the low side. We need to adjust that. Yeah. Okay, the idle has gone down. It's revealed that I've actually turned the screw in too much. We need to back it off. The engine is shaking. There we go. Now we go around and do it again. This is rather repetitive, guys, but this is the procedure. I recommend doing this for every car with a carburettor. That's why you've got to bridge the fan to keep the temperature where it is. My neighbours are going to get so pissed off with the amount of smoke. Well, not smoke, but the smell of old car. There we go. Do you know something? I don't need to stick the tachometer on that. That feels a happy car to me, and it's high enough. Look, the truth is, I know how all this works, so if there was a problem if I gave this a test drive in a classic, this is what you're going to have to do. You take it for a test drive, you won't be happy with it, or it cuts out, or it feels a bit poor, and you're on the side of the road doing all this. So you've got to know what to do. Doing it on your driver in a controlled environment is great, because you learn how to do things in the open environment when things are really, you know, when SHIT hits the bucket. I would say that's about 900 RPM, and this car is quite happy with that. 850, give or take 50 RPM. That's fantastic. Okay, I'm really happy with that. Let's have a look at the mixture again. If I could just get you in. The camera's picking up a bit more orange than I thought. That's what you want. You want the mixture. You don't want the mixture right in the middle. You want the mixture slightly more towards the rich side. Classics do not like running a bit lean. Always run it slightly on the rich side. And you're done. Brilliant. Now, we've got to do the fast idle. And that requires me turning it off and giving it a brake. Just gonna have a look around here again. The smoking stopped. All this crap seems to have stopped. We haven't had any smoking down here whatsoever, and usually when you're doing the fuel mixture it gets hot in here, but this fan will be quite hot because of my bridge. I'm going to keep that little piece of wire, I've got to keep it in the boot for when I'm traveling. I don't know why, but it's a good bridge. You never know when you might need a bridge. a metaphorical one. Anyway, now the fast idle. Okay, so me 8 mils here, and basically to wind it in, you are increasing the fast idle speed by winding it in. By loosening it off anti-clockwise, you're bringing it away, you're reducing the speed. Right, let's go for it. It may be a bit tricky because, you know, the engine's warm and we're going for a full choke here. It will not have any of it. Okie dokie. Right, I thought it wouldn't have anything of it. That's what happens when you try and flood a carburettor. I thought I wouldn't have much time. Turns out the car won't have any of it. So the fast idle test I'm going to have to do on a cold start, which will be a pain. But it doesn't matter because the idle speed and the fuel mixture are the most important things. The fast idle, I just have to carry me 8 mil around with me the next time I start this car, possibly tomorrow, and that's that. But there is one other thing we haven't checked, and that is the throttle kicker. Quite important. It acts as a throttle damper, basically. When, particularly on the automatics, on the manuals, it's a throttle damper. So when you take your foot off the gas, it slows the rate at which the throttle closes, better for emissions. That's why these Weber carburetors, these late ones, are built for emissions. On the automatics, it's a bit different because I believe it's more or less to do with going from park to reverse, or basically a non-gear to a driven gear, and then vice versa back. It's to help stabilise that change, because on the cars of old, my old Rover P6, that was a 3-speed automatic Borg Warner, and every time you go from park to drive, clunk, and the whole idle speed would just drop stupidly. There's no way of making that smoother with them sort of cars, but this is seamless, utterly seamless, going from park to drive or reverse, whatever, and it's like that now. But anyway, that's the next thing. Now I need to read up on the stats of that one. Now the throttle kicker, which sits here. Take this hose off. This is its feed hose. I have put a hose clamp on. I need to do that. You need to bung this up. I've got a screw on the side. I'm just going to put a screw in there and tighten the clamp. We don't want any air coming out of that. Now this, what we are doing is we are adjusting this. And there's a simple test to make sure it works, and it does work. You put your thumb over there, operate the kicker, okay? Because what happens when you operate the kicker, it pushes the throttle plate. This is the throttle plate. It pushes it slightly, and the operating speed of this is 1100 RPM, okay? That's what it should be operating at. But if I just operate the leg, put my thumb there, it holds. There you go, and releases. That's why, that's just a simple check to make sure that the throttle kicker is working. Now, all you do, simply, is we bung this up, and then we manually operate the throttle kicker, okay? And then we record the engine speed. So I'm going to need my blooming tachometer again. Brilliant. Right, repeat procedure. You put the air filter back on. Now I've adjusted it out so that the leg is pushing on. We want to see some movement. There we go. This lever wasn't moving, but you can hear this. There was a change in RPM, but you must plug this. I've got to keep my finger on that when I do it. Anyway, another one. I think that was just a little bit too much. It looked like 1300 to me on the gauge. So I think I better back that screw off a little bit, but that throttle kicker will be set at roughly around 1100, give or take 50. That's the figure. I can't do anything more today. That is as far as we go with this car. And she's holding, well, obviously she's holding temperature because the fan's on all the time. But she runs like a kitten now. Let it drop down, and it drops to 900 RPM. That's good. I'd prefer it to be at 900 than 850, because then you're pushing that and that engine feels great, and that is with the air filter where it is. Now obviously fast idle, can't do the checks. I've got to wait for another day in order to do that fast idle. We'll do that on another day, but for now, and Project Ruby, good day. 10 seconds in each gear. Check the fluid level. In your own time, Andres. Dipstick's too short. Put it back in and take it back out again. Yeah, I think we need more fluid, and that's why you should check your gearbox fluid, guys. Take care. I've had a few comments from people recently asking me, this is really your niche, isn't it? And the truth is, I have a very good modern classic in a Ford Focus Mark 1. But these are my things, and classics is where I feel most at home. It is also what causes me the most stress, and no doubt this car is going to give me some stress. But the reason we stress over them is because we absolutely love them. And that is what I feel about this car. Please do not ask me the question, have I changed my mind about selling it on? I can't answer that question at the moment. I'll tell you when I'm finished. Take care.